The movie begins in the small town of Bramstrup, southern Jutland. It's April of 19th. Erna, a single mother, is living with her intelligent grown young son, Kalle. The two are very close since they are the only families left. They even still sleep in the same room, even though Kalle is a young grown man already. In the middle of the night, Kalle asks his mom if he can go to war because he's really determined to do it. He wants to be a man himself and make an excellent reputation for their family, but Erna says the other. She firmly believes he's too weak and stupid to be a soldier. He can't even kill a chicken and is too afraid of many things. The following day, while preparing for breakfast, a group of men and their fellow villager, Constable Meyer, approach their house. Meyer knocks at Erna's house, telling her that Kalle needs to go to war because of a high order from the government. Erna's maternal instincts suddenly arise when she shows Meyer and his men that Kalle can't join the military due to his disability. Still, it's all nonsense to Meyer since he also can't disobey the orders. Then suddenly, Kalle approaches the door and happily volunteers himself as a soldier. Erna has left no choice but to prepare her son's things and drop him off at Flensborg garrison, along with other young men who are forced to go to war. But, as they approach the garrison, it's too late for Erna to stop her son because a soldier stops him from continuing inside the camp. With all the sympathy he has left in his heart, Feldwebel Meyer, or means he steps up as a sergeant, tries his best to help Erna. First, she makes her talk to the colonel, and that's what she does next. Then, with her homemade sausages, Erna brings it to the colonel while begging him to pull out his son from the camp, but it's too late. Erna walks out from the colonel's office and tries to hide from a horse stable, and she is eyeing the two young men trying to escape the camp. The first man to fall, his legs break, and he asks for Erna's help, so she picks him up and puts him inside the stable. Unfortunately, the other man gets shot by the army when they catch him escaping. The terror on Erna's face is quite apparent. She fears for Kalle's life at first, but it seems like she also fears for her life. Then, finally, the young man she saved talks to her. His name is Julius Rasmussen. Julius sadly explains how much torture he experiences inside the camp. He doesn't want to go to war because he doesn't want to die for Germany. He is Danish, that's where his heart belongs. They have the same reason and don't want to sacrifice their lives for people who invaded them. After minutes of trying to comprehend what to do, Erna comes up with an idea to swap clothes with Julius, and that's what they do. After exchanging their dresses, they also exchange their identities. Next, Julius cuts Erna's hair to look like a guy and instructs her on everything she needs to know, who she needs to go to, where to go, and what to do. After that, they say their goodbyes to each other. Erna walks along with another soldier who is coming inside the camp. Without any further ado, she can go where Julius' uncle, Anton Sayerson, is resting. She immediately introduces herself, and Anton quickly recognizes that she's a woman. The other soldiers inside the room are flabbergasted by what they see. They are also scared to be caught because it means a deadly punishment. Finally, however, Anton stands up from his bed, learning that his nephew is able to desert from the camp. In exchange, Erna asks for his help to get to Kalle. Since all of them have no choice now, Erna, now named Julius, stays in their group. That same night, all the soldiers should go outside the hallway for regular attendance. Anton is quite scared to get caught when Julius' name turns up. Surprisingly, Erna gets to pass by the officer and save herself. Until the following days, when the training starts, Erna sees Meyer again when they are getting their armor and other essential needs inside the training camp. Meyer is shocked to see her stay in the camp. He immediately goes to dorm 18 and talks to Erna privately. Meyer and Erna get into an agreement. Meyer needs to keep an eye on Kalle, look after him no matter what, and make sure that he's always safe, in exchange that after the war, Erna will marry the widowed man, Meyer. It's a massive decision for Erna since she's never been with a man all her life. After their private conversation, Meyer calls in the other men and announces that he will hold their troops and be kept safe from being caught. Meyer makes them realize they are lucky and consider Erna their guardian angel. In the following days, the training starts, learning how to shoot, assemble guns, and make their bodies challenging. They need to learn it quickly because it's their deployment next month. When the month of May comes, Erna sadly witnesses families saying goodbyes to soldiers. Plenty of hearts are broken. Even Anton, who looks like a tough man, cries as he hugs his wife and daughters for the last time. But with Erna's situation, she's content with being on the same train as Kalle as long as they are together. When their train begins its journey, the soldiers can get along and get to know each other more since it's a long way to go. Finally, after hours of endless travel, they are given a 15-minute break to go off the train and take a breath. With Erna, she decides to go far from her fellow soldiers. She goes into a deep part of the riverside to take a pee when suddenly, A fellow soldier named Max Peterson grabs her and covers her mouth. Max slowly touches Erna's body, while his trousers are pulled down. He knows she's a woman. In that 15 minutes, Max rapes Erna. When they all come back to the train, Erna seems absent-minded. Fellow soldiers also start noticing that she looks like a woman, confirming that she is one. Meyer also observes her on the other side, and he can't talk to her even if he wants to. As they arrive at their site, they reside in a beautiful, massive house, with numerous rooms inside. Meanwhile, Erna confesses to Meyer what she did with Max. She explains that while Max is doing his thing, she grabs a stone and pounds it on Max's head, leaving him unconscious and bleeding. Meyer saves her once again, telling her that he will just report Max as a deserter, and after that, Erna walks out and cleans herself. Anton accidentally sees her inside the room when she changes her clothes into average women's clothes. Instead of condemning her, Anton dances with Erna. They both enjoy each other's company, dancing in the middle of the war, forgetting that they're in the battle for a second. It's Erna's first time dancing as well, and it's the first time a man holds her hand and enjoys her company while Anton feels at home. While dancing, Meyer shockingly surprises them and asks them to stop. He calls them to go to the kitchen to make an important announcement. Although their fellow soldiers gossip about a traitor woman who was able to pass by the authorities and serve in the military, they're talking about Erna. Meyer thinks that the safest way they can to survive the checkpoint and authorities is to volunteer to go to the significant front line, which many soldiers avoid going to because it's deadly. But Meyer reassures them that after 10 days, they will go home immediately and can do whatever they want. So the men agree on it and volunteer themselves. As they prepare to go into the front line, the troops eat their last supper with fellow soldiers first. Then, they keep seeing the white fireworks in the sky, having no idea what it means. And after eating, they keep walking until they reach the front line, where they witness many tired, exhausted men barely saving their lives. Meyer introduces himself to the officer, and the officer explains their duty to defend the sector of the German Reich. He also reiterates the importance of taking turns in tasks to avoid bigger problems. After the explanation, the officer guides them to their underground bunk, a very nasty, tight bunk full of hanging dead rats and filth inside. The following day, Erna is taking turns duties with Fritz, a 15-year-old boy who wants to redeem his family's reputation after the men of their family died in the war. Fritz asks Erna if he can call her Moody since he misses his own. Erna decides to clean their bunk, asking Kalle to help her, and the others tease Kalle for that, as his mother's forever tale. With that, it frustrates Kalle, shouting at his mom, asking her to leave him alone in the war because he knows he can do it. And Erna, as a mother, is left stunned and speechless until the other men come in. The next day, while eating their breakfast, a massive plane flies above their heads, heading towards the French's side. They are pretty disturbed by it. Meanwhile, Anton and Erna seem to get along well. They are closer than ever, inseparable pairs. Not until Meyer silently gets envious, jealous, and mad at them. With his jealousy, Meyer asks Kalle, Anton, and Christian to take their duty in barbed wire, which shocks Erna because it means that it'll endanger his son. But the three men go off, and while fixing the barbed wire, Erna is their support at the back when the French start shooting. Christian and Anton are able to run for their lives, but Kalle can't. Anton quickly realizes it and returns to save Kalle. The three make themselves alive and get back to the bunk safely. Erna burst out into anger at Meyer, pissing her off. The following day, when they are assembling their guns, Meyer asks Erna to go and talk privately. Inside the bunk, he confesses how he loves Erna and forces her to be his wife and him as her husband. Meyer also confronts Erna about her close partnership with Anton. He gets jealous until he moves himself on Erna and kisses her without her consent. And Erna pushes him and backs off, while suddenly, a loud explosion distracts them, leaving them speechless. The soldiers immediately go inside the bunk, with wounds and endless bleeding. Fortunately, Kalle survives and doesn't get any scars. Still, everyone looks absent-minded, as they can't stop the interminable bombings and shootings. Loud explosions and gunshots can be heard inside the bunk, and Meyer, who is supposed to lead them, can't be talked to either. Finally, Anton takes a stand and leads them, acting like the new Feldfebel. As hours turn into days, Matthias, one of the soldiers, tries to count the days by carving the wood in his bunk bed. One time, Erna asks him what day it is, and to her surprise, it's Thursday, meaning that they are inside the bunk for about 3 days. And Erna remembers that Kalle's birthday is on Saturday. So since she's not sure they're still alive on Saturday, she decides to make a pancake to celebrate Kalle's birthday. While they are celebrating and singing Kalle a birthday song, Meyer gets up from his wanderings and points a gun at Anton. The celebration stops, begging Meyer to stop his delusions. Meyer puts his attention to Kalle instead, pointing his gun at him, and making Erna immediately stand up and cover herself. And since Meyer loves Erna, he can't hurt her, so he goes to the battlefield instead and lets the bombings kill him. After what happened, Anton decides to drink with Erna and talk about their lives. Erna reveals that Kalle is his adopted son whom she found at her doorstep one day. Kalle is an unwanted farmer's baby. She decides to drown him when he is a child but gets convicted and promises to God that she will protect him for the rest of her life. While Anton enjoys listening to her story, he wonders if she can let go of Kalle since he's a grown man. Also, he is the center of her world, taking care of him constantly, but who's taking care of her? That's when Erna and Anton decide to do things the way they always wanted to, kissing and making love in the middle of the war. Unbothered, even with the thought of no promises for tomorrow, they pour out every bit of their desire until they fall asleep. The following day, they don't have any food left, and Erna bravely goes outside when the men are asleep. She sees the horror of the war's outcome. Dead soldiers are everywhere. She even sees Meyer's body hanging on the top, and she pulls his body to cover herself from being caught. When the French pass her by, she asks for help, but no one seems to hear, only to recognize Kalle's presence, and he is there. Kalle pulls Meyer's body from his mother's and brings it back to the bunk, leaving his mother outside. Erna wakes up in the middle of the pond, cornered by the French soldiers, but instead of killing her, she shows the Danish flag she takes from Anton, saving her life. In November of that year, 6 months after the war, Erna survives and serves as a kitchen aide in the French prison of war. Then, finally, a soldier comes in, announcing that the war is ended, and he goes to Erna since she's been asked to go to the official's office. The officials grant her freedom and adore her bravery in fighting in the war, despite the danger she might face. Then, they send her home to Denmark, and while Erna is taking endless train rides, she sees Anton sleeping on the other side corner when she is about to leave her station. The movie ends when she gets off, and she asks the guard to give back the Danish flag she took under the name of Julius. While walking back to her hometown, her neighbors greet her, only to find out that Kalle is home also. And now, Erna reunites with his dearly loved son, along with Anton's baby that she's carrying. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.